On a cold evening on November the 1st, 2003, a 14-year-old schoolgirl said goodbye to her sister on Blackpool Pier, went off to the arcades and was never seen again. 20 years on, it remains one of the biggest unsolved mysteries. What happened to Charlene Downes? No body was ever found, no remains uncovered. No concrete evidence has ever told us the story of where this young girl ended up on that tragic night.
The amount of failings by all the people that were meant to actually protect Charlene, everybody just failed.
It's not something I'll ever get over until she's found, until I've got some answers.
But then I'd love to go and literally, like I said, take the law into my own hands. They took my daughter, I could take them.
The that gets in the way of protecting our children is diabolical.
I feel as though I know what's happened to Charlene Downes, but it's not something that could verbalise or broadcast.
To grind a body through a mincer and not leave any DNA anywhere is near on impossible.
Obviously I'd like to see a resolution to this case, but as to whether there will be, I'm not sure.
Who knows? But maybe she is out there.
Two men were tried in May 2007, one for Downes' murder, the other for helping to dispose of her body, but the jury failed to reach a verdict. While lurid and sensational rumours still circulate about how Charlene's body was ground up and sold as kebab meat, there has still been no definitive proof that this is what happened.
But then the court case happened and all this stuff about, the CPS did assert that these two men that they'd arrested, because they dropped all the nominals and concentrated on these two men, I think it was 3 men at the time. And this outlandish line about a little girl being sexually exploited and then murdered and crushed into a body crushed into meat to put into kebabs, and the bones crushed into tile grouting. That's outlandish, isn't it? So you have a look at that. I still haven't seen any evidence that would suggest Ravessi and Albertini are anywhere near the end of the timeline with Charlene Downes. Still haven't seen anything, but they still pressed ahead with the case, and the feeling that, if you're a kind of lower working class, kind of poor, white kid on the streets of Blackpool, no one gives a toss about you. That's the case. No one gives a toss about kids like Charlene Downes.
Charlene's disappearance quickly unearthed some very dark truths of the awful things that were being done to vulnerable young girls in Blackpool. A police investigation revealed that she'd been one of an estimated 60 girls who were being groomed for sex in the resort. Charlene and her friends had been hanging out in a dark and narrow back street that a number of takeaways backed onto. Later, it transpired that a group of men who had been working in these takeaways at the time had been giving young girls, some as young as 11, cash, cigarettes and food in return for sexual favours, an activity known as localised grooming. This was just the tip of the iceberg. Now, after 2 decades, the question still remains, will we ever know what really happened to Charlene Downes? Charlene moved to the resort in 1999 with her mum and dad, Karen and Bob Downes, and 3 siblings, Emma, Rebecca and Robert. They lived on Buchanan Street in central Blackpool, having moved from Coventry in search of a better life. Charlene was described by those who knew her as pleasant, cheeky and always smiling, but she also had a rebellious streak. She loved being around animals and children, and she also loved going to the theatre.
it was just a normal Saturday, really. She got up as normal, had a bath, and watched her Daren Day videos, as she always. It was Daren. She was mad on Daren Day in them days, and she'd been to see him previously at the Winter Gardens with a nana, and she'd met him, and he'd give her a autograph, even some free tickets. So she was watching it, and we bought her the video, which, as I say, that morning she was playing.
I do remember her, you know, and I mean, she came to see a lot of shows, a lot of my performances, but also, as I said to you on the phone, you know, she would sometimes, you know, she'd just come down and have a chat with me at stage door. She wouldn't necessarily have seen the show that night, or she might come down and have a little chat with me before a show, or after a show, and yeah, there's something, you know, sometimes in life you meet people and they just stay with you, and I think one of the things that makes me remember her is I was worried about her. You know, there was just this thing, she seemed to me, I think I just remember being worried for her generally, and I did feel she was troubled, and I always made time for her, you know. She used to come down, and I always appreciate anyone who follows my career or comes to stage door or both, but she was like there a lot, you know, and I always made time for her, but there was just something about Charlene that kind of, sometimes I just wanted to go, tell me about, you know, are you all right? What's going on? Is everything all right? But you can't do that.
So the night she went missing had been a typical cold, dark November evening. It was a Saturday night. Charlene had been in town with her older sister Rebecca, who was 16 at the time. They'd bumped into their mum at around 6:45 p.m. This was on Church Street, where Karen had been handing out leaflets for an Indian restaurant. Rebecca went home, but Charlene stayed in town. She said she was off to meet some friends at the arcade. It was the last